is Stephanie, and happy December. We're about 2 weeks away before January, the new year, 2023. And I felt like coming on here and doing a live. And if this is your first time joining in, welcome. My name is Stephanie, Divine Cosmic Empress, Shamanic High Priestess. I am here sharing a message. I would say the Oracle of the Week or the energy message of the week for you. And it's just something I felt that was coming through. And so I wanted to share that with you. And just taking a moment to enjoy where you are, being present, settling in. As always, just allowing ourselves to tune into our heart. Hey. And allowing ourselves just to ground ourselves, which is so important. As I mentioned, if you've been following with me the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about entering into that spirit, that space of spirit where you can follow into your heart, listening to the whispers of what guidance wants to come through for you. And that first key step is always to tune into your breath and just ground. And grounding into your heart, getting away from the logical mind, and just coming down into that space of oneness, right? And so today's message is called Manifesting in Integrity, which is perfect because we're about to hit, 2023. And so this has been coming pretty early on in terms of what is it that you're manifesting? What is it that you're desiring to call in for the new year? And some people might do words of the year. That's something I've played around with too. And let me know if you have a word for the year. It's something that's been coming up, right? And even before you start jotting down what is it that you want to call in and have for the new year, for your new experience here, what are you grateful for? Can you look back and see what you've done and celebrate and honor that in gratitude? Because even for myself, major things have come through. I didn't even know I was going to go into them. And I was actually speaking about this with my husband, saying it's crazy how, this year alone, I just stepped into the fact that I was you know what, I'm feeling I want to share my love with crystals and oils and take that step. And just having that desire and having the boldness, which is something I'm going to go into a little bit more, but having that grand gesture that you make and you have that share with the universe, with the divine, with God, and saying, confirmation through action. This is what I'm you have that share with the universe, with the divine, with God, and saying, confirmation through action. This is what I'm wanting to experience and do, and everything else. That's where the co-creation comes through. That's when you'll start seeing, you'll go into spaces that you didn't even think of going into. And in particular for me, I attended some metaphysical fairs this year, and it was such a beautiful experience. Prior to making that leap, I literally was nervous to come through and share holistic energy work and read for people a little bit more on a different scale, and also share crystals, right? And so just allowing yourself to tune into that for a moment, just to see how far you've come. I'm pretty sure you've gotten pretty far. You've had new experiences this year alone. And so as we go into manifesting the next thing that we're feeling our heart's desire to go into, this is going to definitely tap in. And I love to use the cards because it'll have a little bit of oomph in terms of sparking your imagination. So one of the things that came through was what have you been committing to, especially recently? When we look at symbolically, we have the ring, the circle. The circle means engagements, commitments. It can also symbolize cycles. So being careful that you're not going into a cycle again where you are, again, not honoring yourself. Have you made a commitment most recently, or even especially during the holidays where we overcompromise? And this brings in a very, very important, like, key. It's the word integrity. And integrity means being loyal to something. This is what is being shown with the dog spirit. Hey. And so with the dog spirit, it symbolizes loyalty, you know? So if we add in that, like, loyalty and, like, the ring of commitments, like, what have you been loyal to, right? And so going forward, and even where you stand right now, like, when you make goals, desires, wishes, petitions to the divine, like, you are making a desire based off of what you value, based off of your morals, right? And with that, like, that loyalty and integrity, sometimes though, because we are always, like, you know, forming and, like, refining that integrity, what it is that we value, you know, as we continue to go through life cycles, we may lose our place. We may compromise that for someone else's dreams and desires to people please, you know. There's a fine line, and sometimes we kind of shift out of alignment to what it is that we desire to hold true. And so these things symbolized by the mice, and mice symbolize, like, a slowing decay, like eating away at what you've been committed to. And essentially what I got through this overall message is, like, okay, it's either something I've been committing to or you've been committing yourself to, and I'm slowly not feeling excited about it anymore, right? Or, you know what, it just doesn't feel right with me or with you. And so when we take a look at it, the very middle thing connecting both the two is, like, the situation that might not be moving forward with you, for you in the next year, right, in the next coming weeks, really comes down to, like, the anchor, which is, like, what is it that you're loyal to? And when we define loyalty, when we define integrity, it's like, okay, integrity is when my intention, my words, and my action come into one. Integrity is my authenticity expressed. So every decision, ideally, and choices that I make and commit myself to is so that it'll bring me closer to what, and expressing what it is that I stand for. And you know when your integrity, when you feel right, when you feel aligned, right? And when you're not in alignment, when you're not in your integrity, in your morals, your desires and values, when you've compromised yourself, you feel it because you feel off, right? You feel uncomfortable. Maybe you also have, like, some sort of, like, psychological, emotional, mental, like, triggers come up, right? It's like, I'm feeling anxious. And let me know if, like, any of this resonates with you. And, like, this just felt like a very strong message to share, because it's so important, like, it's so important. And I'm going to share a story, because a lot of us are very strong manifestors, right? We have that faith, we have the right mind, the heart, and then, you know, when all that's together, and even sometimes too, we can manifest those things that we don't want, just because of the energy that we are holding in the space. So, two things, in the beginning, if you just, you know, joined in, like I mentioned, like how in the beginning of the year, for the longest time, one of the things I've been wanting to experience is, like, going to metaphysical fairs and holding space, doing energy work, and coming really sharing in the authenticity of expression, right? Which is the shamanic healer, oracle. And I got to do that this year. The moment I declared and said out loud, like, hey, I'm opening my own crystal shop, things started rolling. I started feeling into that alignment more by more. And I didn't plan it. It just holding that vibration, being in, and standing firm in my desires is what led to the next, right? Second story was I started noticing that at work, especially when you work in an environment with, like, a group of people, like, there's a common goal, right? And so in my job in particular, towards certain seasons, and, like, this last month, we got the opportunity to be split into teams. And again, everyone has their own personal goal, but when you're in a team, like, okay, it's a collective. We're all working for this, right? And the first one that came through was like, they offered, okay, the winning team who does the most like contract work will win each like $1,000, right? And I know that my prayers are strong because they come through. And I've been working a lot with like my intentions, my prayer, the energy and the mindset that I hold. So I see how it happens. So I was like already claiming it. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to do with that $1,000. I'm going to get my hair done. I'm going to get, Christmas presents for the family so I don't have to dip into my savings. I started like intending it, and I know I claimed my mindset that it's already ours, And then I went further with it. This feeling that if I win, we all win. My whole team wins. And at the very end of it, we all won, right? And so was that like falling out of integrity for me because I was working? Well, that's a commitment that I've stepped into, right? And no, it wasn't out of alignment because there was an exchange that I was getting, and yet at the same time also supporting the collective in our group here, right? And that goes out and trickles out further. And then Spirit was telling me, okay, so we're talking about goals and commitments for the new year, right? You have your own personal goals as an individual. And the exact same thing that you do that you offer to somebody else, right? Like the work and the aid, the ear that you give to somebody, to your neighbor, your friends, community. And you help them progress further too. And receive. Put that energy, put that faith, put that like just full out devotion and making these grand gestures for yourself. Because you're such a strong manifester, such a strong, like powerful, sovereign creator. And you can do that for your own work, right? And I say that when I talk about like I hold space where I do 9 to 5. And I have my own purpose-driven spiritual business, right? Where I hold space for others to do work, energy work, and healing and clearance, and manifesting their life that they desire, right? That they're being called to. And that exactly is like, oh, yeah, like apply the amount of like blessings I've seen come in my life, like in other areas, apply that right here and like own it. Like there is something that we're being called that when you take baby steps towards your vision and goals, you'll see how the universe supports you, right? But there's also a moment I feel like, and especially with this grand gesture card, this is a malachite crystal. And so malachite crystal is a very green heart opener. It's requiring a lot of trust and faith, and for us to step out and do something big. Like, can you do a big, powerful action commitment in the next coming weeks? And like I say next coming weeks, because it'll jump you into that next timeline of where you're being called to do, so that you can like be bold to ask, like be so bold to ask and say, I am desiring this. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know with who and when, but this is what I want. I hold space for everybody else, but this is what I want, and I'm declaring it. Especially with the energy of support, right? And especially with this community, with the amount of spiritual people we have here. And can you declare that, right? And as I just take a moment to notice Humble's comment, I just released a new song today. Congratulations. And yeah, I feel fearful because some people in my life don't agree with my views. And that fear that you felt come up the moment you released it, right? It's the part of the conditioning that we've had, that we've grown up, right? And there's that like cord that's still connected to, whether it's like through this lifetime, like as you grew up as a a child and your early years, where it's like, okay, you know, by me speaking up and doing something that I know I feel passion and I felt called to do, an inspiration, right? And I put it out there and I made that big, bold declaration of grand gesture and faith. Is that going to displease somebody else, right? Is that going to, am I displeasing you because I'm doing this and I'm taking this bold action and move? And, you know, am I making you feel uncomfortable, right? And just know that trigger that came up, if you can just go back to the moment that when you released her or while you were making it, right? And the whole process of it. And if it felt right to you, then that's how you know, again, you're in your integrity. You're walking the steps in your own right alignment. The other is just an ego thought. You can also, which is perfect too, where you can allow yourself to hold space and grace and just say like a gentle prayer where I grant myself, you know, gratitude, forgiveness for feeling this, right? It's okay to feel it, but I release it. And I also release the judgments that I receive from whomever, if it comes through in your external field, right? Whomever's like comments or eyes and stares, whatever it is that they share from their perspective, I forgive that. Because the more neutral you can hold and the more space you can hold for yourself to hold into your own integrity and just have that faith and continue to stay in that space, that's where your level of reality and the blessings and the abundance that are meant for you are going to come in even more because you're standing firm. That's the whole integrity part. That's the whole loyalty. Like, what are you loyal to? Are you loyal to the fear that's coming up, which is okay, which is normal, right? Or you can remind yourself, no, I'm loyal to the calling that God has for me, my spirit, my higher source, Goddess has for me, right? And that is what I'm excited to see, you know, and that's the higher aim. And that wobble that we feel, like the triggers that come up after doing like such a bold move like that, or bringing something so beautiful out into the world that came from you and your source. Again, it just meant to, you can use that as a way to solidify and celebrate and honor yourselves, the fact that you've done it, right? You've taken a step that some people like don't even do. And they don't do it in this lifetime. But you did that. And she says that they don't support me because I have spoken up for those who stayed strong when the world was following the old world powers. And I should be celebrating, yeah. And yes, and I definitely celebrate you because, again, you're not alone. We've known each other like here and supporting each other for a while now. And yes, and that's just, you know, it's just confirmation in the fact that you're doing things that are breaking away from that old paradigm and where you've come from, where you've been conditioned from, right? And that's something to be, you know, celebrated for, right? And something that like came through for me a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting because I thought about like how my story, I mean, I have no connection with my mother, right? And my father transitioned. You're welcome. My father, as you know, transitioned a couple years ago. Like, it's about 3 years now. So one of the things, we're so afraid, the ego mind's afraid of dying, right? And losing and things. And I thought to myself, and just to elaborate, like one thing that my husband said, he said that when people get married, right, it's like you and your partner, you guys, it's you two. You guys are now your own family with God, right? And once you guys are together, like, it doesn't matter what my mom says, right? It doesn't matter what such and such says. It's like, this is our This is our pillars. This is what we believe in. This is how we are going to, live in our household. These are the rules. These are things that we hold true. And it's not going to agree with our parents or old generations or, again, the old paradigm way of thinking and believing. And that's okay because we're okay with it, right? It's us. We're here together. That goes back to we're here together in union, right? In this relationship. And I thought to myself, remembering what he said, I said, oh, what am I so afraid of? What judgments am I afraid of? When my father has transitioned, on a physical plane level, and I have no connection with my mom. So, what am I so being afraid of being held back from stepping into, really expressing, my shamanic, witchy, healer self? They're not physically here, right? So what am I afraid of? And that felt liberating because you don't have to wait for someone to transition, okay, or etc. But when you look at it that way, it's I have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain, right? And then in this sense, we have a lot of healers, or we have a lot of artists and creatives, and everybody has to gain something from you just being true to you this next coming year. And I'm saying long, year, right? Or next coming weeks. Every day. Can you do something such as a grand gesture to show the universe that you are committed to this? This is what I'm saying I'm wanting and anchoring, right? And just because I thought it was a beautiful freaking message when I read it, I'm going to read it out loud for you, for you who are on live and you on recording. This one says the Archangel Raphael, and this is the energy crystal for malachite, which is a heart centering crystal. So grand gesture. With the grand gesture, the grand gesture is a big step, the willingness to say to the universe, I trust you and I know it is time for life as I have known it to give way for bigger, bolder experiences. And I am willing to allow you to lead me into it. Every time you do a gesture, it's an offering, right? It's an offering which confirms your declaration and empowers the universe to reward you. The universe is waiting for you to show it what it is that you want. And the thing is, when we make an offering, when we do, and even me coming up here on live and just okay, this is an offering, this is an action I'm taking. You can take your action through faith and trust and what your integrity is and what you feel you're being called to do. And your desires even. You can be motivated by the desire, right, of said experience. Or you can do it in a way where you're coming up in fear. Two different vibrations will produce two different results, right? And when you're willing to do something and step into it and just realize that I did this out of love. I did it through a high vibration, creativity, to have fun with it because I enjoy it. You did this because of that free outpouring of unconditional love. That's when you can expect the outpouring and showerings of blessings upon you, right? And so don't let yourself to be deterred, right? To be moved and say that this is my next move, universe. This is my next move. And so do your best. And when it comes to working with spirit, working with the, energies, right? It's you take your step, you declare, and then what you're waiting for is for God to show me a sign to confirm it. So my mental mind doesn't think I made this all up, right? Or it doesn't go into the spiral downhill of oh, it's not going to happen, right? Yes, and I love that. Even you just taking a moment to ask your spirit angels and guides, your higher self, to be with you, to, again, whomever may hear this message, let it be for their ears, right? And that's just you aligning yourself, taking that moment to align yourself in the path of your chosen reality. You're offering it through a loving devotion. And for this one here too, there are times where we might waver, which is fine, but that's where you give yourself grace, because you're just realizing what it is that you need to do, and you know what you need to do. You just need to go do it, right? And just stand gracefully on your feet. That's it. And then if you do feel the fear, right? If you do feel the triggers come up, because again, you might wobble. You might go out of alignment for a moment. Just allow yourself to acknowledge it, exactly what you mentioned. I love that you voiced it out loud. Like, this is what the fear has been coming up as, right? Judgment through community and people who don't support it, support my work, support my beliefs, don't think like I do. You voiced it, and now you can stand firm, and that's more a logical thing, right? Ego, mind thing, mind chatter. And let me come back to my heart. Let me come back to, like, through prayer, through breath work, right? Let me come back and what is the thing that feels more aligned to me, where I feel more at peace, where I feel more confident, where I feel more alive. Like, that is a thing. And the more you come into this, the more through action, through intention, through your words, that you are holding into your integrity, the more that integrity, that muscle of integrity grows and strengthens. And the more you realize, you know what, maybe it doesn't hurt so much anymore. Maybe it doesn't really, next time it kind of falls on deaf ears because I've heard it before, right? And it does feel good whenever you come back into alignment. And essentially, like, that is the journey path, right? As we walk this walk and our reincarnation, right? Here in this lifetime, it's like, how many times can I come back to me, right? Can I come back to me, express my truth, hold that truth? And the other thing too, it's like, holding it. Like, how can I hold it longer and longer throughout the day? And just realize that even if I, step out of line sometimes, you know what, I have a day I'm off. It's like, okay. Because I'm learning more about myself. And so I would say, any keynotes? I would say today feels like a day of definitely, like, reflecting. If you have that space, if you have that moment, do some things to, like, definitely, there we go, integrity. Okay. Strengthen your nervous system, especially for the next coming weeks, especially when you go into the January 1st. When I think about integrity, the major thing that came through was, like, the nervous system. Like, when your nervous system is in integrity, it's strengthened, it is harmonious, balanced, right? So to speak, it's flowing even in and out. You're able to make those aligned steps, so the aligned actions, the decisions based off of your own center versus you just going with the flow and self-sacrificing, which is what we do not want to do, right? That's not an empowered sovereign being. And just tips for support, major things, especially because you can say sometimes you can meditate, you try to do it, and the body itself is not able to come into that centered state. What can you do? Well, if you drink tea, some things that could definitely help would be like lavender tea, or also a plant that I actually was working with today. I was working with chamomile today. And also if you have cacao, cacao is a heart opener. So that'll help you to kind of sync your awareness from the mind to your heart space. So that'll help in the expansion here. So that when you start prepping yourself up and then really meditating in the next 2 weeks, what your goals and desires are for the new year. Like, be bold about it. So let's like go in here and it's like really be bold that like I'm worthy of this, right? And I want to make the bigger leap. So chamomile, cacao, lavender, and also on a physical note, I would say essential oils would be perfect because they work with your cells at a physical level, and they go into the organ tissues where the energy centers are present as well, and they help recalibrate you. And so likewise, if you happen to have like lavender oil, that would be perfect. You can have a couple of that drops into a like large bath if you have one, just to calm down the system. Sleeping is also important, and I say that because I need to do it myself. But I wanted to share with you the message for the week, next 2 weeks. I feel that was coming through. And I also want to share some energetic tips so that, maybe it'll help you and just bring you back into your center, bring you back into your integrity. And that word is going to be so strong. At least that's my chosen word for the new year, integrity. How can I express my authenticity more? And let me know like how this, resonated with you. Thank you so much for showing up and commenting and sharing everything that came through for you and holding space for each other. And yes, taking back your power really is just a moment. Really, all it takes is just allow yourself to feel grounded, to feel safe, to feel supported in your own belief, like listening to your heart. Like, what is your own heart telling you, right? What is your own spirit telling you? Oh, and I'm glad you have lavender. Yes. And then as you feel your nervous system feels calm, integrity, realigned, then what is that next action? What is that next step? And better yet, what is the bigger step that I can do to express my bold declaration for this new year? And I would recommend writing it down so that you could remember, like you can see how powerful of a conscious creator that you are. And so I just wanted to thank you guys for being here today, holding space. I'm definitely gonna, my conscious consistency, right? And join me this week. Stay tuned in my stories. I'm either going to do a Friday or Saturday live where I'm going to share my own personal story with my first shamanic journey. As I've been posting recently in the past couple of days, the benefits of it, and especially also what it is that you can do through that space and the way I work and do that. And I pray you guys have a beautiful, blessed evening, and let's continue to stay connected. And thank you. Satnam.